Okay, can we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight. You have to forgive me because I forgot your name. I had it in my book.
Stuart Messenger.
Stuart Messenger is here from the Chazen Consultants, and he's going to give us a little idea of what he does and how he can help us with the project coming down the road.
Where do you want me?
Right here.
You
Go to the camera.
usually that's only
Yeah.
You can tell them from out of town because we go the time. I'm going to give these to you at the end because if I give them to you now, you'll look at them and you won't listen to me.
Well, this is
I don't want that. So I appreciate you having me. I'm Stuart Messinger. I'm a vice president with the Chazen Companies, and I'm a land use planner by trade. Chazen, if you don't know, we're a company that does civil and environmental engineering, land use planning, landscape architecture, environmental health and safety, and surveying. We have 3 offices. We're in Poughkeepsie, Troy, and Queensbury, which is Glens Falls. We're about 105 people. We serve as consulting engineers to about 30 municipalities, and in about a dozen or so, we have the role like what you're asking us to do, which is we call it planning board engineer, where we review projects, and we do that in different roles in different towns. In some towns, we review all the applications and write reports and sit with the planning board. And in others, we just, if every project comes in they want us to look at, we look at it. And so we're really open to doing this any way you want it to do. You want to do it. We have lots of different arrangements. I'm, like I said, a land use planner. I've been a planner in New York for about 30 plus years, and also do this with communities. Depending on the nature of the project, we'll either have an engineer be the main person or a person like myself, and it might be myself depending on what you ultimately want. So we do this in a lot of communities. We are familiar with the Bel Air project because everybody's familiar with Bel Air, but I think to speak to our qualifications, we have reviewed or worked on ski mountain resort projects. We most recently got approvals for a resort project for Cortina Mountain. We've done a couple projects for Hunter Mountain, and we've worked for Boar Mountain over the years. We think that one of the advantages that we bring as a reviewer of projects is that we are also a designer of projects. We think that if you work with somebody who's only a reviewer, they don't have the practical experience of actually building things. And since we work for both applicants and in a review role, we kind of understand how plans actually get built and how they translate onto the ground. And so we think that's an advantage in the way that we approach projects. The other thing is that we have a pretty extensive history of working in the watershed. We understand DEP's requirements. Their stormwater requirements are pretty intense. And because we've done projects at Cortina and Hunter, we're familiar with them, and we suspect that in your review, it's going to be the stormwater management that is going to drive the design of this project. In particular, trying to meet DEP's stormwater requirements is going to drive a lot of what happens out here. And so knowing those requirements and having a good working relationship with Joe Damroth and some of the other people at DEP, I think will help us translate what they want for you folks, and enable us to work with the applicant to get a project that you like and can approve, and that they can also approve, because they are a strict agency in how this review is going to go. So we think that's a good bit of experience. If you're not aware, we've been working with Shandaken over the last year. We did a water project for you folks. We designed the High Street Water Project, which hasn't gone out to bid yet. But we have some working experience here, and I'm told that we've done well and that you're happy with us, unless somebody's misinformed me. So that's kind of a little bit about us. The way we do a project, the way would do something like this, where I think it's a one-of, is we would assign a permanent person to be your point of contact. They would attend meetings if you wanted them to or not, or just do the written thing. It's up to you. The applicant is asked to establish an escrow up front. And we usually establish the amount of that escrow after we've had a look at the plans. And initial escrows for little projects are $1,500. Something like this is probably a $10,000 escrow to start with. And so we bill off of the escrow, and I don't know whether you've done escrow accounts before, but we can help you with the nuts and bolts of establishing them and making sure they're not drawn down below the amount. Because, and the reason we do it is to protect you and to protect us, because when applicants are unhappy and they walk away, then they have no motivation to pay the bill, right? So that's why that part of it is important. And some towns like us to work with applicants outside of the formal planning board process. Some towns will say to us, go meet with those guys and just get it done, and come back to us when you're both happy. Some don't. And so we probably want to talk to you about how you wanted our relationship with the applicant to be. I would guess in this case that you want a very transparent, open, and public process, because you have so many people looking at it, and you don't necessarily want to have us meeting with people, in private meetings. Not because anything bad is going to happen, but I think you probably want a transparent process here. We work according to whatever deadlines you give us. Usually, we like to have enough. We like to have the plans with enough time in advance of your meetings, so that we can, give them a good review and have you a letter in advance of your meetings. So that's the overview. That's a little bit about us and how we approach the project. We do a lot of this kind of work. We've reviewed probably some of the biggest projects in New York State. We're the engineers of the Global Foundries thing up in Saratoga County, and we're not averse to doing a lot on adjustments. Everything in between.
Oh, great.
Yeah, you're probably on the higher end than the lower end, I'll say that.
Now, you work mostly for the municipalities as opposed to development.
No, we're in our terms of our workload, we're about 40% municipalities, 40% private work. And by private, I mean not really just developers, because development disappeared about 5 years ago and only started coming back now. But we have a pretty good, within the development portfolio, we have a pretty good school, K through 12, college portfolio. So we kind of kept ourselves going on that side. And we do a lot of work for state agencies. So we have OGS contracts and parks contracts. So we have a pretty diverse base, which again I think is kind of helpful here, because we see a lot of different. We see. I won't say we've seen it all, because I see something new every day, but we see a lot of different kinds of projects. So that's our mix.
So you work both sides of it?
We do, yeah, and I think it's an advantage.
Yeah,
Because I think if you get somebody who there's two advantages to it. One is we can help you understand when an applicant is telling you something he has to have versus something he wants to have. It's kind of like, and you don't see these, but it's kind of like when McDonald's tells an applicant, we only have one store type and one sign type, and this is going to be it. And you know what? That's not true. They have lots of store types back in the vault. Okay, and so by working for developers, we can kind of tell you which of the things they're telling you are true and are essential to their business and their business model and their design, and which things are things they'd like to have because they're convenient or appealing or maybe more cost effective, and all of which are legitimate, but you need to know the difference. And conversely, when we work for applicants, we can sort of tell them, these are the things that drive municipal reviews, and this is what's important to the municipality. And, developers come in all levels of sophistication. You probably, at this point, have a pretty sophisticated developer, right? And so they understand, what you need, what you want. And I don't think that part of it's going to play into it. But I think we can help you translate needs from wants. And that's one of the advantages a firm like us has.
questions?
Yeah, Stuart, what is your rate per meeting?
Well, it's going to depend on who we assign, but probably we would assign a meeting rate. I'm thinking, the engineer I'm thinking of would bill out at about 135 an hour.
Okay.
And he-
And office rate?
Well, he would bill out, that would be his rate for doing the work. We would probably have a more junior engineer do some of the review pieces, and that's going to be in the $80 to $100 range, depending on who we assign. Yep.
John?
He would come out of Poughkeepsie?
Actually, I think that the person that I think I'd like to use, because he has the DEP experience, is out of Troy.
So Poughkeepsie, Queens, Queensbury, and Troy?
Yeah.
So there's travel expense, I think.
Yeah, we can, we can work that in a couple of ways. I mean, I guess if I'm in your shoes, I'm going, it's the applicant's escrow, it's not costing you. But if that's a factor in your decision, then we'll talk to you about how to make it competitive. I can have him working, and I split my time between the three offices. I'm coming from Poughkeepsie today, I live in Queensbury. So if that's a factor in the decision, then we'll do something with travel expenses way. We'll have him work in Poughkeepsie. And he's a fellow who works in the Catskills and does a lot of projects down the Hudson Valley. So, I think anybody you hire is probably going to have some form of travel expenses. So I'm willing to be competitive on that.
Kathy, have any questions for John? Well,
I have a few for you.
okay.
So you're going to, this DEC is finishing up its secret process, right? And then they're going to write a finding statement. And I would think I was asking Mr. Brewer, your intent would be to adopt that finding statement, so you probably don't need an independent finding statement written, one of your own. Is that your thinking?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And then in terms of timeframe, have they submitted a site plan application?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not really an
Yeah,
application.
not a full,
Full,
a
it's not
partial.
full, it's a partial,
Okay.
and they came and they,
Stormwater runoff engineering work.
Right.
Okay, so you're in need of that part of it, yeah.
yeah.
Have you guys interacted much with the DEP yet? In your, do you let them in the building? I can understand that.
No, not much.
Okay.
We'll be just waiting for that decision from the DEC.
Yeah, we're waiting
Yeah.
for the lead agency.
Well, we want to be ready and hit the ground running as soon as we get there.
Okay. And do they need more than site plan review? Do they need either subdivision from you or a special use permit?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, so all three forms of review, okay. And
yes.
Is it-
Site plan and special use.
okay. Does the town board have an approval here, or is it just you folks?
It's just us.
Just you guys, okay, good. That makes it simpler. What do you think are the major issues from your point of view driving the review? Are there particular things that you're concerned about or that you want us to look at?
I think the storm water runoff is going to be one of the most important things. But from everything I've read, it seems to be covered pretty well. But having another opinion that from you guys would be the type of things we're looking for.
Yeah, okay.
Right, just something to back up our own decisions.
Okay.
We're not experts.
We don't want to miss anything.
Right, and we don't want to cause any havoc or,
Yeah.
have them come back at us with anything.
Well, as I said, we also think stormwater is probably the biggest driver on this project in terms of an engineering review. Okay. Do you envision that we would be at your meetings? That's been?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's easy enough for us.
Just more for guidance and to make sure that we don't misstep.
It's a complex project.
Yeah.
And there's, the first phase that they're submitting is, there's two developments, as I recall, which is the phase?
The Wild Acres.
The Wild Acres. okay.
Wild Acres Lodge and the 18-hole golf course. Forward.
Yeah, there's phase 1 and phase 2 from what I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah,
So they'd be
so
submitting.
that'll be first.
Okay. And they would initially submit one phase or the whole shooting match?
I think the first phase is coming and then the second phase. What, 3 years to build out the first part and
Yeah.
5 years to completion?
Yeah. You'd probably want to give them the approval in phases too, so that there's an opportunity to see how things go and correct. You know, it's inevitable that there'll be issues that come up during construction and so on. That's the best way to do that.
May I ask a question? Administratively, since I am new to this position, if there's anything that I need to make sure that all my i's are dotted, my t's are crossed, is that something that I could lean on here? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we can give you any level of help you want, but it sounds like, you know, if we can help you with the administrative parts, we can help you make the resolutions, make sure things are filed. The escrow I mentioned, which is, I think, really important to get that right. Some towns will involve the town council, you know, so that an account is created, or the town clerk, or the planning board clerk. It just depends on how you want to do it. We can give you examples of escrow agreements to send to the applicants. There's just pretty much templates for all those kinds of things. We'd be happy to help you with that.
Stuart, have you had the opportunity to look at our ordinance?
I have not, and so this is actually the last thing I was going to ask you. I was going to say that if you wanted to work with us, and we'd love to work with you, one of the very first things we'd want to do is go through the ordinance and then take a tour of the site. And whether that was with just the planning board or the planning board and the applicant would really be up to you. But I'm a firm believer that you don't understand a project until you see the site that it's built on. So those would be the very first things we do. And we'd want to do them, we'd want to review the ordinance first, just look at the application, go for a site walk, and then I think we'd be a little bit up to speed on the project.
What are some of the projects that your company has done that were of this magnitude?
In terms of design, we've done a project called Silo Ridge in Dutchess County, which was about 1,000 units. We just finished a redesign or a redevelopment plan for Dover Knowles Psychiatric Center, which is about 750 units. I'm just under contract to do a redevelopment of the Hudson Psychiatric Center in Poughkeepsie, and they want about 800 units. I'm doing a project right across the river. It's 900 units. And we design a lot of big scale development. In terms of review work, right now we're reviewing the redevelopment of the Duck and Birth Yard in Poughkeepsie, which is about 350 units on the river. The Global Foundries project I mentioned, that's about 2 million square feet. So a big commercial project. So we do pretty.
A lot up in the APA area?
We have not ourselves done a lot of design in the park. The LA group, and I think the LA group is the engineer here. And that could be, I seem to remember they were, unless they got turfed off of it. Has done most of the big resort development. I worked for the LA group in the first 10 years of my career in New York. So I personally worked on those projects, but Chazen did not. We are the engineers for the towns of Lake George and Lake Luzerne and Ticonderoga, all of which are in the park, but none of those have seen projects anywhere near this size. We're looking at smaller stores. Yeah. But a fair amount of pretty large scale projects.
Stuart, could you just give me the spelling of your firm?
I'm going to give you
Okay, very good.
a book of Chazen, because I said it might be close to me. And this is more than you need, but it does give you kind of the breadth of what we do, some of which, it's more really oriented towards municipal services than project reviews, but it's an overview of the firm. Like I said, we're about 105 people. We've been around since 1947, and Poughkeepsie is home office, it's home base. So we've been doing this for quite a while. See, I told you if I gave it to you.
Yeah, that's it.
I've done this before. That's okay. You can.
Normal reaction.
It's like
You lost us.
it's funny. I talked to the town clerk just to be sure where I was going, and she said, "Oh, there's no cell phone service there." And I said, "Great. People won't be looking at their texts while we're talking."
Have you mentioned these other projects in terms of units?
Mhm.
Are these hotels or residential? I'm just curious, or
Well, it depends on the project.
beds in a hospital? Or?
Depends on the project, but, so a mix of single-family residences and multi-family residences. You know, Hunter, for example, Hunter Mountain, we've done a couple of things. I don't know if you folks have seen the Catskill Mountain Lodge. So that's a big ski mountain lodge. That's us, all that's crazy stonework behind us. And then on the other side of the mountain is something called lift-side condominiums. So that's a townhouse condominium development. Most large-scale projects are mixed use as a practical matter, just because they're trying to create products that they can sell to lots of different kinds of people. I imagine you don't have a lot of single family here, as I remember what the plan originally was. This is attached townhouse style, and there'll probably be time.
Well, no, they're not all.
They're not all?
They did say that there's two that was gonna be,
Private homes.
private
Oh,
homes
no kidding.
dotted here and there
Oh.
as they sold them and, you know, with them.
Stuart, you know I have to ask you this question. How much experience do you have with golf courses?
We have a fair amount of golf course experience. Yeah, we actually design golf courses. We have a fellow on our staff who's a big golf course guy. The Carvel project, I don't know if I mentioned Carvel, but Carvel was one of the Dutchess County projects, had a big golf course. We've designed golf courses with a couple of name architects. It's not my personal thing, so I avoid golf because it's embarrassing for me to play. But we have a guy who's done quite a bit of it, and so we can look at that. You know, the issues there tend to be drainage issues, and there's pesticide management issues, and I imagine water withdrawal for irrigation, or sometimes there's an issue.
The pesticides are very important.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we can help you with that. We've actually done it.
I have no more questions.
Everybody good? Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Do you have a time frame for decision?
No, not really. I have to speak with the supervisor
Okay.
again. I spoke with him earlier today.
Okay, and if he wants us to come back, I'm happy to do that. It's no problem.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you for coming.
Thanks, have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Okay.
Don Brewer,
Here?
Art Christie,
Here.
John Horn,
Here?
Joanne Howell,
And you, Brenda.
Kathy Jordan, Cliff DeGrupo. You're special, Joanne.
Okay. Old business. Treader Kathleen and Williams, special permit application. Desired house to erect. It's modular, which normally would not require site plan review. However, plot is located in the floodplain. Application, plat, and elevation certificates previously provided to the board members. Which we have.
They did not come to the workshop, right?
No, they did not.
No, they weren't.
They are here this evening. Yes.
Now, these are people that were here a while ago?
Yeah, they were here when they divided the property
Very good, yes. In fact, we started with
into
you
three parcels.
in July, yes.
Yes.
In fact, we spent 2 sessions with you, July and September, and each session got a real gem from you in terms of how to make that lot line adjustment process easier for us, so.
I do remember that one piece was much larger than the other two.
Right, so we divided them all up. In fact, the drawing that you have in front of you, or somewhere up there, shows the new approved lot line. Joe Doan is the professional engineer that's been working with me, and just like you said, that you wanted somebody to kind of make sure you're doing it right. Well, that's what he's doing with me, make sure I'm doing it right. So we did come to you with an application, and I had intended it to come to your workshop last week, but I understand that for whatever reason that the discussion that I thought we would have, maybe that workshop is not the appropriate place to do that. On the application, it talks about something called like a sketch plan meeting and those sorts of things. Basically, you have the application, we know we're in the flood fringe overlay district, which requires us, among other things, to elevate our first floor above the floodplain, and we have a design to do that. And we've got the approvals for the septic, we've got the approvals, we talked about moving a stream that was on the property, a drainage ditch, and we've got the approvals to do that from the state. So when we went in for the building permit, we discovered that, there's another step here, and it's the step of the planning board approving the special use permit before we go back to the building supervisor, the building inspector with the building permit application. So we submitted what was probably a draft at this point of that special use application, and would like to talk about what is missing and what we need to do and how to make this work for us with our single-family modular home that we have planning to build.
Why is this a special use? I mean, are they not in the right district for modular?
No, because he's in the floodplain.
Because they're in the floodplain, they gotta have the elevation.
Yes, and there is, actually, you have an elevation certification, I believe, as part of our package.
Yes.
What is, do you happen to know the elevation of the house next door to yours?
I do. The newer house, the first floor of that house is at an elevation of about 713 feet.
713.
713, within plus or minus 6 inches. And the flood elevation that they were working with was, I believe, was a foot lower than that. So as we come down Plank Road there, it kind of changes as you get down the road. And we're working with, in fact, I also gave you what I believe is a kind of, that drawing, which was the surveyor's kind of homework on the new flood elevations, I should say the proposed new FEMA flood elevations that we would sure like to think would come into effect really soon. And the old ones are also on there. So I think our elevation